Hello everyone, Navi here from Tech and Learning. Thank you for attending day 2 of the Tech and Learning Virtual Leadership Summit. A special thank you to our sponsors, Guide K-12, Now Forecast 5 Analytics, MediaSite, Prezi, Noriva, and Boxlight. I'd like to remind everyone to log into the Conference Hub using the link sent in your confirmation email. Once you are logged in, you can visit a sponsor booth and Zoom meeting room to learn about their offerings and to book one-on-one meetings. Each visit to a sponsor Zoom room earns you 20 entries to our Passport to Prizes. We'll announce winners via email at the end of the conference. You'll also be able to see your personalized agenda, network with today's attendees, and access conference resources in the download section. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the session, please submit them through the Zoom chat feature. Please know we capture all questions and our presenters are happy to answer as time permits. Today's slides and additional resource materials are available and may be accessed within the Download tab of the Conference Hub. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you may find useful. Be sure to use the conference hashtag #TLTechLive in any of your social posts. Our next session is sponsored by Boxlight. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Christine Weiser from Tech and Learning.
Thank you, Navi, and welcome everybody for day 2 of our very first virtual summit. So great to have you here, especially during this crazy busy time. Today we're going to be talking about professional development. So we have 2 wonderful speakers. We have Krista Walker, who is the head of professional development for Boxlight. She's just going to share some information about PD and also STEM, and sort of in particular, because that seems to be a particular challenge as we move toward an online and hybrid learning environment. And then we have our friend Tila Watson, who's the Director of Digital Learning at the ESC in Region 11, Fort Worth. So it's a very big region. And she's going to be talking about building teams and finding your superstars and that sort of thing to drive great professional development. So please put your questions in chat. And please use the TL Tech Live hashtag as well. And without further ado, I would love to welcome Krista to share some information with us.
Good morning, everybody. It is so nice to be here with you. I am going to get my screen up here for you. All right. I had to make my own intro slide, so I hope that's okay, Christine.
Totally fine.
All right. So, you know, like most of you, on March 13th, we found out that all the schools that we were working with were shut down, and by March 16th had a completely different professional development program rolled out to support the online learning setting. And at that time, you know, it was crisis learning, let's be real honest. So we wanted to make sure that we were supporting the teachers and meeting them at where their most essential needs were. And today we're going to talk about, you know, just some of those key questions and things that worked as we start planning for the upcoming school year. And still, you know, we were talking before you all entered the room, just so many of the unknowns that we have right now. And then, as Christine mentioned, shifting that experiential learning experience. So when we talk about STEM or just those experiences that would be tangible in the classroom, how we think about that in a remote or even a hybrid environment. We'll touch briefly on student engagement as well as equity and accessibility. And honestly, these all could be day-long, month-long training sessions. So in 15 minutes, we're just gonna hopefully have some inquiry, some questions, and maybe spark some thoughts that can assist you as you're talking to your leadership teams, you're working with your teachers, students, and parents. So on everybody's mind is, what are the best strategies? And the answer is there's no right answer, but there are ways to make things more accessible, to make sure that we're connecting and engaging and utilizing the tools that we have at hand and the resources that we have to their utmost abilities for our teachers and students at this time. So as we look at this, we had 2 very large districts, one here in Phoenix, Arizona with Phoenix Union High School District, and then one in Georgia with the Clayton County Public Schools. And EOS provides comprehensive professional development programs, but also does customizations and has different programs to support schools where their needs are at that time. And when we switched, what we found really worked well was, when we talk about how we engage with students and providing them different opportunities to interact and connect, we need to do the same thing for our teachers. And so we started with webinars. So that was a way to get large groups of teachers in to really get those essentials. What were those platforms that we were going to use, whether you were Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, or if you were using your LMS at that time. But we could get those essential skills, basic needs met at that time. And then we also provided online courses. So those were self-paced. And there's a lot of opportunities for those out there. We were talking about, teachers investing so much time, but it really does help to put some structure to that and guide teachers where the best resources are for them. But those were nice because you could come back and visit those again. And, some teachers caught it right away or had already been using the platforms, and others really struggled in just getting set up and being able to connect with their kids. And we did one-to-one and small group coaching, and this can be done with PLCs, this can be done with instructional leaders, coaches, but to help support those that need that extra hand. Personally, I met with 400 teachers in about 6 weeks, one-to-one, and some of those teachers I met with every single day, just to help support them with what they were using in their classroom, in their virtual classroom. And then we did two things that were a little more experiential for the teachers, so virtual playgrounds and learning labs. This was a chance to work with smaller groups, but to give them the student experience. So what were the students seeing on the other side? Sometimes when we think about professional development, we're giving the teachers all the tools, but they don't know what the students are seeing. So having that, as well as being able to model what some of these tools could look like or how to use them effectively for their instruction. And at that time we were in sustained learning, and now we know we're moving into our curriculum. So that's going to be really important to let teachers have time to practice, make mistakes, ask questions, really get in there. And when I say time, I know that that's the most precious thing that we have, but it really is important to have that as part of the conversation of what amount of time you're allocating for teachers to be able to develop some of these skills. So when we put these puzzle pieces together, what we found really worked well was clear communication. And I think we can all agree that sometimes, I know for us here in Arizona, we're not getting a lot of really clear communication. We're getting some guidelines and suggestions. But from a district standpoint or from a school standpoint, really putting out those realistic expectations and being transparent about what's happening. Having those key questions to ask for preparation. So what are the essential things that we need, and what are these best practices? If we invest in Chromebooks and we invest in Windows 10 devices and we invest in hotspots, we want to make sure that they're able to actually utilize those. So what are the essential things that we need to get those up and running? And then providing that ongoing training to help put those further pieces together, because I hear from teachers all the time, I'm getting inundated with all of these different tools. What does what? So providing that training to kind of help make those connections has been really powerful and has helped support the teachers feel more confident as they're delivering instruction in these new environments. It kind of transitions us into the experiential learning piece and with STEM. So this upper box here, we have these tangible experiences in the classroom, whether we're doing labs or we're having hands-on. So kids are making, doing, and trying. But when we think about it, how do we provide these types of skills, watching and the demonstrating, questioning and reporting in our virtual and remote classroom? And we need to think about, maybe it's we change our experience, or we change the STEM lesson to focus on what's in our real world right now. So I may not have the fancy science lab, or I may not have my lab disk that does all these experiments for me, but what do I have, or what do students have around them that they can still have that tangible experience? And then utilize some of those other resources that we have access to watch and see others do the demonstrations. And then the students can come back and provide that questioning. They can lead discussions depending on your grade band, and have those using Stream and Google Classroom, or using the posts and Microsoft Teams to really have a dialogue and discuss what they found, what their reasonings, and all that questioning piece. And then having that reporting and time to assess and give students feedback, as well as maybe they deliver some product or something that they created of their own that they can share in this type of environment, or using another platform that supports that. We talk a lot about synchronous and asynchronous. That becomes so important, and especially in the hybrid, because you may have students that are in your classroom and out of your classroom at the same time. So thinking about what tool we're going to use to bring everybody in that same space together. And then using what we have in the virtual environment to allow times for small groups of students to work together, individual time, so that they have time to explore and experiment and ask questions. And then really looking about passion projects. When we talk about how do we translate it, and I said, maybe we have to change our experiments or change our lessons up a bit. Ask the students what they're passionate about or what they've been questioning, and utilize those to bring in that experience then. Oops, I lost my mouse, sorry. And so as we move into the extension of this learning opportunity, you can see here on this list, there's still ways to incorporate that design thinking that's so essential when we talk about STEM and those experiences that we're having. There's many applications out there that provide simulations. So, PhET simulations is one where students can actually manipulate and interact with something on the screen. It may not be tangible in their hands, but still have that opportunity to engage with those pieces, as well as bringing in guest speakers. As teachers, we can't do everything, and there's experts and there's fields out there that are really providing this resource, especially at this time, that they can come in and deliver for your students some of those experiments, some of those demonstrations, some of those learning opportunities that really immerse the students in the content itself. And then project-based learning, pbl.org has quite a few built projects already. As a teacher, I know anything that I can get that was already pre-made and I don't have to make it myself, including rubrics and lesson plans. Those are there, and it also aligns with how to use it and integrate the technology with that. And then of course, videos is, we can always bring those into it. But one of the things that's been essential when we've been working with the districts is having a roadmap. And like I said, I was talking to a teacher the other day and she said, Krista, there's 37 apps. I don't know what they do. Just tell me what they do. And so giving 2 or 3 different applications that you recommend for these types of experiences, or even when we start talking about, research and knowledge acquisition or creativity in the classroom, what are those things that have been identified that are quality and that can support the teachers, but not making it so robust that it becomes overwhelming. Nobody has time to learn 37 applications right now. But if we can narrow it and create a roadmap and help guide teachers, they'll be able to have that increased engagement with their students. So that's my segue right into here. I think the biggest thing was learning that this is not going to look like your classroom. And I know Tila had mentioned before just how much productivity has increased in some of our environments. And I know others have really struggled in that aspect. but thinking about delivering that content in small chunks and providing choice. So this is something that I would think would be a best practice in classrooms regardless of using technology. And I hope that this introduction of technology for some teachers becomes something that's sustained, because it really does enable us to reach such a broad scope of learners and give them different ways to interact with content that maybe otherwise they wouldn't receive. And we talked about this a little bit too, and I know you guys did the great session on digital community and digital citizenship. Essential, you know, that's one of the starting points, is what does your digital community look like? When we set up our physical classrooms, we have expectations, we have a structure set for them. We need to do that same thing in our virtual environments, so that students can come in and feel confident and comfortable in that space as well. And then we look at streamlining and humanizing it, so that we're not forgetting about that social and emotional piece that is so very, very important. And how do we integrate that in everything that we're doing? So kind of wrapping this piece up. So again, defining that digital space. And you can see here in this graphic, you know, how to put those pieces together. And maybe I have a flipped classroom where my students watch a video before we come together for some synchronous learning time. And I deliver my lesson through Nearpod or a Mimeo Connect platform where it's alive, but there's different ways to assess and engage students, so they have to interact with me and the content at the same time. And I allow them to maybe use Newsela then to go and do some research and more knowledge acquisition, and then finally present their work using something like a Flipgrid, where they can use now audio or video to deliver their responses and to present their work. And that's kind of a way to bridge some of these pieces together and make those tools work for the teachers rather than against the teachers. Committing to that process for delivery. So, you know, I had one teacher who was putting things in different spaces every single day. We were like, let's stop. Let's pause, and let's make sure that we're putting a very consistent space where students know and how to connect with you, know where to get information, and if they can't find that, know how to connect with you to find out how to, and create that workflow that's predictable. That's, you know, crucial when we're in the remote environment, that we can connect with the students on a regular basis. And then finally, the social and emotional learning piece here, you know, having time to check in, and also having time to have fun and just connect with each other, just as, you know, having conversations in the classroom, you know, maybe creating some space. I saw somebody had an animal on their screen. There's a new platform where you can have live streaming of, you know, different events happening in the animal kingdom. You can have playing as your students come in, and then you can have a discussion about it. So making time for those pieces, as well as our curriculum and instruction. And I'll wrap up quickly here. I know I just have one more minute or so. When we talk about equity and accessibility, you know, with purchases of Chromebooks or Windows 10 devices, this investment is huge for districts. So we want to make sure that we also are including the appropriate professional development, not only for the teachers, but also for the students and families, to be able to utilize those devices. It's one thing to be able to turn it on, but there's so many other features that are accessible to students that we want to make sure they're aware of. And it starts with us knowing what those are, and then making sure that we're giving that information out. And then as a proponent and somebody who worked in the field of working with individuals with disabilities, it is vital, and I'm sure those of you who are with your special education departments and ELL, it's really important that we are familiar with the accessibility tools, and regardless of your platform, Google or Microsoft, and even some of the LMSs have those built in, to make sure that we know what we can share with our students, and give them the opportunity to be able to interact with that content, But again, it starts with us knowing what that is and then how we relay that information to our students. So with Boxlight and EOS, what we do is a platform essentials. So it's training courses for Chrome and Windows devices. We're agnostic, so regardless of what the platform is, having that facilitator-led training piece, and then also those pieces where teachers can practice is really important. And then going beyond the essentials, which may not happen in the first 2 weeks of school. We want to get those basic skills up and make sure everybody is able to connect and engage and work together in this remote or hybrid environment, whatever is defined for us. It seems to be changing on the hour at this time. So again, that was really, really quick touches. Hopefully that sparks some thoughts or questions in your mind. But I think Tila is going to be a great transition into, how do you build that up in your teams and superstars in your own districts and schools?
Yeah, and I wanted to just ask a real quick question.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you touched on equity. That is a question that came up in the chat. Obviously, that's a huge issue. I'm curious if how you are recommending or supporting your parents in this, in the delivering this, especially when you're talking about those more interactive online, and then also maybe your younger students. If you want to just quickly.
Right. I think one of the things, this happened with Clayton County, is the training that was provided for the teachers also then included resources that they could give to the students as well as give to the parents. So whatever the teachers were getting, there was additional resources that could be shared out with the families and the students themselves as well. With students, it's difficult because sometimes we can't have them log into, a platform because they're not 13 or whatever the case may be. So we need to make sure that we're equipping the teachers with the tools that they can give to the students and resources. With Phoenix Union High School District here, they have a robust plan that's available on their website. It is translated into the languages that support their district, as well as they have ongoing communication with the parents on their student view or their parent view, which is part of their LMS, where parents can come in and ask questions and get support in that way as well. So that's one of the hardest things, is really how do you bring the outside into your world? And as much as we can provide our teachers and give them resources to give back out, I think that's a good starting point, because they're our connector with our families.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So now, Teal, I know you're going to talk a little bit about, building the team and finding your rock stars there to drive innovation and PD. So you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I work at the service center out of Fort Worth. We serve 77 ISDs and about 585,000 students in our region of the state's broken up into 20 regions, and that is my region. And I have 70,000 educators. And so really what I want to talk about today is that in all of this transition, Krista just gave us all of these great ideas and all of these things that we want to be doing with kids. But how do you take a team of educators that maybe this is a whole new world for them, and how do you build their strengths in order to accomplish what you need to with students? And so I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see if I can. I think it's really important to keep in mind that what we're looking for in terms of strengths and a focus on strengths is that all the research shows that no matter how much professional development you do with teachers or with anyone, any human being, they're only going to have about a 10% change in their behavior. Without coaching and really working with them on an individual level. And so what we say when I get ready to hire people and build teams is that I'm not going to change a leopard's spots. It's not going to happen. I need to be hiring for strengths that they already have. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to hold them accountable on a team. I'll give you a great example. I have this amazing gentleman who's worked with me for the last 6 years, and he's just fantastic presenter, and he does a great job building relationships with teachers in a professional learning role, and he's just off the charts great. He cannot seem to get his expense report complete on time or with even all the right documents, and he's been with me for 6 years. And in the beginning, I allowed that to really frustrate me. And I realized I'm not focusing on what he's great at and pairing him with someone who's better at those things. That's what I really had to move to. And so we do use in our organization the Clifton Strengths Finder tool. I highly recommend it. It's pretty reasonably priced for your employees or your teams to take the assessment online. And then we use that. We've used it the entire last year as a theme to every department meeting that we've had. There has been some focus on strengths in every meeting. And so I want to show you that the Clifton Strengths is broken up into 4 different domains or themes. You have executing strengths and influencing strengths and relationship building and strategic thinking. And all of these are great to have on a team. And what you're looking at on the screen is my actual team's results. And when I first started putting teams together, I made a huge mistake thinking I know how high productive I can be. I'm not always, but I know I can be. And so I would look for people similar to me. And what I quickly learned was it's a train wreck to have a lot of me. I look like a train wreck, just waiting to jump off the tracks most of the time. And so I quickly realized I need to be hiring for strengths that complement or are opposite from me, so that I have all the different strengths filled. And so every time an employee or a team member starts, they take the Clifton strengths for us, and then I plug them in here. I'm moving this year to assessing my final 3 candidates for any given position. I know that some people would say, well, that's a waste of money. Your 2 of those people aren't even going to come with you, and then you've spent that money. If I'm hiring smart, then that's not a waste of money, because if I hire somebody who shows strengths in an area that I really am not looking for, then I've made a huge expensive error when I put that team together. And so we're going to assess those candidates as we get to our final 2 or 3 candidates, just to see where they lie. I want to show you, let me see if I have that slide. I don't think I do. We have on my leadership team, as a director, I have 2 coordinators, and I made sure that those 2 coordinators look nothing like me. I've got those pieces covered. I needed a great strategic thinking and relationship building, and executing is the one. I'll have a million great ideas, and the execution on my end will be low. But if I hire the right people and I put the right teams together. And so when I think about all the things that Krista just shared with us, as you're building teams, whether they're grade level teams, 3rd grade teachers, 3 or 4 teachers in a hallway, or you're building a team across an entire elementary or secondary school, if you're at central office and you're putting people together on the superintendent's cabinet, you want to make sure that you are focusing on those strengths, holding people accountable, but covering all of these areas. So when I first started using the Strengths Finder, I didn't have very many executors. And what you see now, I had a lot of relationship builders, which I love. I mean, those are important to my team. But if I have nothing but I'm the influencing. Most of the X's you're going to see in the influencing are mine. So I have lots of that. And then I had all these relationship builders, and I had some strategic thinking, but I didn't have anybody carrying it out. And so I really had to focus on that. And so if you can do that when you're building a team as a principal or a central office administrator or in a company, then you're going to be a lot better off. And you can see we talk about this a lot at my level in my meetings. How many influencers do you need? And certainly need more than one. And we have a team of 25 that are in my house or my division. And I have 2 or 3 influencers, but honestly, I don't need I don't need 25 influencers. But you have to have them, and not everybody finds value in that, because woo is one of those characteristics that not everybody appreciates. But if you don't have people who can win others over, which is what woo stands for, you're not going to get very far. You have got to get buy-in, and the only way you can do that is to have those influencing strengths. So you're looking at my team, and then what I would say is that there has to be this great balance. And it's, I think that's a perfect graphic for what we do on our team, because we are constantly trying to poise and be pivoting at any given moment. And I think those of us that are in the technology world have seen ourselves thrust into the limelight. It was sort of that whole, I've spent 10 years wanting somebody to pay attention to us and realize that we have a lot to offer our organization. I wouldn't have done it in the way it got done this spring. If we were, although prepared, we were prepared. Our organization wasn't prepared, and our school districts certainly weren't. But because I had built a strong team, we were able to infiltrate all of the other areas of our organization. And for the first time, people, I think all over the organization, saw a lot of value in what we brought to the table. And if I'd had not really diversified the various strengths of the team, we might still not be seen that way, even though what we do is really important to this process of remote learning and hybrid learning, blended learning, all of it. It takes all of that to carry out what we're trying to do right now. And so what I would say is, as I'm going to move back to this slide, is that balance is really what you're looking for. And there are a lot of free tools that you don't have to use the Clifton Strengths. I want to tell you why we use those. And that is because there's 50 years worth of research behind that particular model. And we're very much a research-based organization, and we want to make sure that what we're doing is legitimate and can be seen as legitimate. And so although there's lots of free tools out there or less expensive tools, I want you to know that I have a lot of faith in it. And the reason I do is that I know they redo their research about every other year. They go back to the drawing board, they look at it again, they update it. And what they've learned over the course of that 50 years of research is that someone's strengths rarely change. You might have a slight change in the order from what your number 1 is to your number 10. They assess 34 strengths total, so there might be some slight changes in those top 10 where they come in at, but those 10 are probably going to be the same 10 they were 10 years ago and the 10 years before that for any given individual. So once you know your strengths, you can really parlay those into yourself. If you know your own strengths, you can focus on your career goals, focus on where you can help your team the most, and know who to seek out. And that's one of the reasons we put this matrix together, is that my team can tell you exactly who they need to go to if they need help with execution. Here's some people on our team that they have great executing plans and documents, and they have a process. I always say, for me, I need to know what the process and the rules are, because I need to know which ones I can break. because I'm going to break almost every one or push that envelope. But I want to know what those are. I need those parameters, and as a guideline for just how far of the line I can step without getting myself in too much trouble. Strategic thinking, what you might want to know about a strength like that is people who have strategic thinking as a theme or a domain, that if they have one or more strength in that area, it means they can rapidly look at ideas and tell you if they're going to work or not. And so I always, when I get ready to build a team and we're going to think through and brainstorm ideas, I make sure I have put one of every one of these domains on that team that's going to brainstorm. And then I would say we also use, there's a great, you probably are all aware of Deloitte, the accounting firm, the very large national accounting firm Deloitte. They have a great business chemistry tool that is really on the leadership end, excuse me, on the leadership side, and it's free and it's accessible on the internet, and that one really helps from a leadership standpoint when you're building a team. So if you were, I want you to think about this question, and I want you to, in the chat box, if you were going to build a team, I want you to rank order these four. You're going to put all four of them down, but in the order that you think is most important to any given team that you're going to build. And I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and I want you to rank 1, 2, 3, and 4. What's the most important to the, I wouldn't say least important, but in order, the fourth most important. Okay, they're coming in. Very good. Randy, are you saying that the relationship building, the touchy feely softies, that's your least important? I don't even know how you like me.
I tolerate it.
Yeah, barely. Barely. Okay, so it's interesting, isn't it, to see what one person thinks versus another in terms of building. I think, and there's just, you could justify this. There's no wrong answer, and it's probably even specific to the kind of team you're building, what your goals are for that team, about what you feel like are some of the most important. But you have to have them all. Not one of these can be left out of that conversation, or you will have huge holes in any plan or any goal that you have set for the team, because you're going to be missing that voice at the table. I love it. Look, Randy, I just want to point out that there's several that have listed relationship building as their number one.
It's a touchy-feely crowd.
Tila, I liked a question from Chuck that wondering if anyone's ever applied this to students to kind of help identify how they learn and how they might lead a group.
So I know 2 tools that do that. This one will do it, and they have a student version. They change. I will tell you on the student side, the Clifton Strengths Finder is not my favorite because it really just takes adult questions and tries to put it in student language, and I don't think that's as great. There is a tool called Thrively that is kind of an up-and-coming tech tool, and it does this and pairs it with PBL opportunities based on strengths. So if a student exhibits these top 5 strengths, this might be a project-based learning experience that would be good for him or her. And I love the story behind that company. So if you dig into Thrively, there's some really neat stuff, and it really addresses that social emotional learning for our students. For right now, that is so important, so very important. And students knowing and understanding their own strengths is extremely powerful for kids who, no matter where they are, if they're gifted or if their IQ is somewhat lower and they struggle in the school SIS setting, if once they know that they have strengths on anywhere in there, that's empowering. It's empowering for a 10-year-old and a junior in high school. It's just empowering to know what your own strengths are and to hear the conversations around, well, I'm really good at this. This is a strength for me. To hear a child verbalize that is pretty powerful, and it empowers them to make some really great decisions. And then I would say, my son, along with apparently most colleges and universities are giving the Clifton Strengths Assessment as part of their college experience now, which I think is great. So I'd been trying to get my son to take this, and he was, because I'm the mom, he would not have any, he's like, whatever, I'm not messing with that. But then he got to Oklahoma State University, and they decided every student in the business department would take this. And he found it fascinating when forced to do it for someone other than his mom. And it really helped him focus in when he could not, he knew what his major was going to be, but he was trying to specialize in an area, and using the Strengths Finder helped him kind of narrow down where he needed to be. And so he's going to graduate on time, looks like, because, and I really attribute that, a lot of it, that he's learned what his strengths are and what he should do. So great question.
I love that. So we're just about out of time. Tila, did you want to add anything? I love this stuff personally, and thanks for letting us answer that, because I'm sort of curious if we fall into the category we choose as the most important, possibly. We know where Randy stands. So I wanted to thank you both. Thank you everybody for joining, and Tila and Krista, thank you. Krista, you used a word I haven't heard in any of our events for some time, the word fun. And yes. So thank you for that. And Randy pointed that out because I haven't heard that in a while. So
it gets lost in all of this.
It gets lost in all of this, and it can be fun. And I think just giving ourselves all a little bit of grace in this time, our teachers, our students, our parents, it's so important. So thank you for this great conversation. So we're going to take a little stretch break. Please go to the conference hub. I don't know, Navi, if you could put the link to the hub in the chat here, just so everyone can just quickly navigate back there. We have a live chat going on, and the sponsor booths, you can go in and say hello to the sponsors. They each have a Zoom room with passport to prizes. If you get 20 entries, if you stop by and say hello. And Chuck's really nice, and Krista, I don't know if you'll be in the booth or that'll be sunshine, but go say hi. They're great folks, lots of fun things there. And then, we have a live chat as well. Reach out to our team if you have any questions. You can put them up on live chat. We'll be back for the next session at noon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Tila. I love you.
Bye, guys.
Chuck,
thank you.
Love you too, man. Christine.
Guys, thank you.
And even, Adam's in here. Adam, what's up?
Wait, where's Adam?